Hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with a Legacy Maverick. Let's quickly make me smaller. There we go. That's better. Sideboard. Nice. Alright. Just waiting for Card Hoarder to send through some cards, but this is the list that I took through last week, I believe, with QB Glacier, which is very cool. There we go. This is a non-Stoneforge Mystic build. If you are looking for a Stoneforge Mystic build, definitely check out Achilles27, who has been doing really well with a an Abzan build with Stoneforge Mystic, which I really like. We did play it a few times, I believe the week prior, and it did pretty well. Thankfully, we have some new plagues. Nice. I do like these newer artworks on Plague Engineer. It's pretty sweet. The old school ones, which is very cool to see. Hey, lover boy. But yeah, overall, I think last time we were pretty happy with the list. The big change that I'm playing around with is 3 main deck swords and 3 main deck prismatic endings, which has been really nice. The flexibility's been huge. I haven't really felt the need for the 4th sword in the board, because for the creature matchups, I really like the 3rd plague. And having the extra prismatic ending is a little bit like how I used to split swords and abrupt decay as a 4-2 split, so a 3-3 split is pretty nice, so that is pretty good. How's Maverick in the meta at the moment? I don't think it's too bad, but I wouldn't say it's a top contender. I think that Matt Vuk in his metagame analysis put it as like a level C. So I'll definitely agree with that. I think that if you are want to be super competitive in the challenges and you're not Achilles 27, you should check out Green White Depths. Is a really strong deck right now. But yeah, Maverick's just in a tough spot. I find that a lot of decks are grinding a bit better than it. Decks like BANT, Control, with cards like Sylvan Library, Uro, and more answers to our own libraries in cards like Prismatic Ending, which is usually one of the best cards in that sort of matchup, is really tough. So a lot of our 1-for-1 removal and creatures that sometimes are just vanilla 2/2s don't line up as great as they have in the past. But it's interesting though that Gaddock Teeg is now actually quite good against decks like BANT because it turns off Prismatic Ending. Yes, it turns off our own Prismatic Endings, but I think turning off opposing Prismatic Endings, Terminus or Engineered Explosives, Jaces, Forces is pretty huge. So that's pretty awesome. Hey Gav, a huge thank you. Too kind, too kind. Basic Swamps is another streamer. A very active player in the Maverick Discord, so definitely check out Basic Swamps when you get a chance. Obelisk Spider is an interesting one. I think I have one, but I haven't felt the Delver matchup to be too bad. And it's really tough to be in a position where I'm playing Obelisk Spider over an extra copy of Endurance, just because this card is pretty incredible. That it kind of fills the same role. And Endurance just has a little bit more utility to it. So for me, the flexibility of Endurance, the 4th copy would probably make it in the deck over the 1st copy of Obelisk Spider. But I do think that Obelisk Spider is very cool because it is a 1/4 that I believe when it deals combat damage, you put a -1/-1 counter on the creature. So it kills Delver, it kills like Flicker Wisp, it gives you an extra turn at least against a Marit Lage because it makes it a 19/19 and it puts you above 20 life in some cases, so kind of it nearly gives you 2 turns. But I think that against Depths we have a pretty good matchup. But yeah, definitely a pretty cool Green Suns target, and one that I've always wanted to try out. I think I did try it out a little while ago in the Oko era. But yeah, pretty sweet deck. The other thing that I like about Abzan right now is that Grist is really the only black card we play in the main deck, which I wouldn't really consider a black card as we're usually green sunning for it, but it's just nice to know that really here we have the Scrubland and 2 Bayous to pay for either Grist or Prismatic Endings if we need any extra colors. And of course Birds and Nobles get there as well. I've been a pretty huge advocate of Mum recently. I think she's doing pretty well. I haven't seen too much Plague Engineer, but a lot of spot removal, so if I did want to make another slot for 4th Mum, I'm not too sure what I would take out. It's actually a little bit tough, but we'll see how it goes. Plague's been pretty nice. We've been playing a few tribal decks against a few tribal decks online. things like goblins and elves. But yeah, all in all, Plague not as great as it once was. It's definitely having less of a massive impact on boards, but it's still really nice to have against some of the go wide strategies, especially since decks like Blue Red Delver have moved away from Young Pyromancer and True Name. There's probably less need for it, but I do like it because it's just a catch-all. Against Delver, it can be pretty nice, especially seeing that both Dragon Rage Channeler and Delver are human. And then if they are playing True Name and Brazen Borrower, they're both rogues as X1s, which is kind of nice. So it could also just be a little bit of ignorance from me from not playing the format as much as some other players and just not having a better grasp of the metagame. But all in all, I've been pretty happy with Plague in the board. I could definitely see the third Plague being another removal spell, either the extra swords or a Part to Exile or something like that. So that would be pretty cool. Hey McSalmon, welcome. You've been playing green-white locally, very cool. I really want to see a little bit more of green-white with Urza's Saga, because I don't think I've given that deck much credit when I probably should have. Because it seems like a pretty cool plan C if you have the Dark Depths combo as plan A, and then the Knight and Elvish Acclaimer mid-range plan as plan B, then Urza's Saga plan C seems pretty cool, but I'm not too sure what you're sort of cutting from the deck to fit in the artifacts you can search for with Urza's Saga. Other than something like Pity Needle is a pretty easy inclusion. And then second is probably something like either a Graveyard Hate Piece or Shadow Spear, which has been popping up and doing pretty well. So I'd be pretty happy to see that. Because yeah, I think just as a player, or at least for my style, it's either you're going for the combo or you're playing the mid-range sort of Green Suns plan. And the Urza's Saga, although it makes the mid-range plan a little better, it doesn't really fix any of your matchups where your mid-range plan wasn't doing that great anyway. Other than maybe something like BANT control, where you just want to be powering out creatures every turn and just making sure they have answers. But definitely a really interesting concept. And Tagoras has done really well with it online, so there's obviously something there that I'm just not seeing. They are some fancy Plague engineers. Correct, McSalmon. If you copy it, if you copy Stage with 2 counters on it, if you copy Urza's Saga with 2 counters on it with Stage, you then just have it forever, which is pretty sweet. Or at least the ability to do it. There we go. Nice. I hope everyone's doing well. It's cool to be back. If you recopy it in response to the third counter. Okay, cool. That's good to know. Thank you very much. Hey, Sajad. Yeah, those plagues are nice. Sometimes services don't allow you to grab the alt art, but I really like the alt art plagues and of course the Judge Nobles. Just like the darker feel to it is really nice. But yeah, I think Achilles has been powering through. Actually, this is a new trophy leaderboard, so there's Dan. Dan actually played this list to a trophy finish, which is really nice. And I'm sure Achilles will be on here very quickly with his. So it's pretty cool. Definitely have a lot of respect for both those guys, especially as green mages. Alright, up against Crypto on the play, which is nice. Interesting hand. The issue is that we can Green Suns turn 1 for Dried Arbor, but then turn 2 we just have 2 green and as a colorless. We can't cast the Grist, we can't cast the Thalia. Pretty happy to mulligan this. This is actually a much better hand. But it's going to be interesting to see what I drop. It could be the Bayou. It could also be the Knight, to make sure that I hit my land drops, and then the Sylvan Library can be my way to actually find a good threat like another Reliquary. In the blind, I want the swords and Thalia. Swords for fair matchups, Thalia for non-fair matchups. I want the Library as a way to recoup from a mulligan. I probably want the Wasteland as an interactive spell. I want the Fetch as well, because Fetch is just better than Bayou. So it's between the Bayou and the Knight. I do have a better chance of drawing into a land, but I think just to have 3 mana from the get-go is really nice. So I'm going to bottom the Knight because there's obviously 8 copies in the deck with Green Suns as well, so pretty happy for that. I'm also going to lead on Windswept because if my opponent plays a turn 1 creature, I probably want a Swords untap play Library, or Swords untap play Thalia, depending what they're on. Island Ponder, okay. This definitely makes me want to lead with Thalia next turn. There is a world where I could lead with Sylvan Library as bait, but I just want to quickly see what they do with the Ponder. Show game log. They chose not to shuffle. Okay. I probably wouldn't mind a land here, so I'm just going to draw for turn. Double Swords isn't the greatest. Opponent looks like they've sixed, so I'm pretty happy just to slam Thalia here, especially seeing we have the third land for Sylvan Library. Petal, okay. Well, now I'm pretty happy. Windswept, okay. They missed a land drop, which is pretty huge. And I think I'm happy to play the library and then just hopefully dig into some sort of extra threat. So I could keep the Wasteland just in case they have another fetch off the top and try to fetch into a non-basic. The Windswept Teeth allows me to hold up Dried Arbor, which isn't the biggest issue. The other role of Windswept Teeth here is that if I play the library and untap and just have like 3 lands on top, I can at least shuffle 2 away instead of using some of my life to draw them and save that for something else. So I think the upside of playing the Wasteland here is better to keep the fetch for the library. I'm gonna attack first. Hey Autonomy, welcome. I hope you're well. And I kind of like that if my opponent is going to fetch for a basic, the Wasteland's kind of done its role, in that it's kept them off a dual land. I think here Green Suns for Collector Oof would be really nice. If I do find a Green Suns, especially seeing I can only Green Suns for 2, I think Oof is better than something like Hex Drinker to get another threat. Looks like they're going to Ponder. Yeah, sometimes Blue-Green Omni does play Ice-Fang Quaddle, so they usually play Snow-Covered, but I'm definitely thinking some sort of combo deck. With Petals, I'm thinking more towards either Mono Blue or Red Green, or sorry, Red Blue Sneak. Okay. This is kind of a situation where I'm happy to keep the Windswept Teeth, because now we have Caracas for a big creature, so put this on top, pay for this. We can, at worst case, put this in off Show and Tell, so play the Heath, which can also fetch Dried Arbor, which increases the clock. Take the draw. Okay. Underground Sea. Okay. This could be Doomsday as well. Play the Petal. They did fetch for jewels here, so I feel like whatever they're on, they're going to try to go off this turn. Ritual. Could we Tess? Interesting. Cabal. Okay. There is a world here where we could actually Swords our own creature to stay alive by 1, but I don't think we can because of how we've played this out. We don't have... We'd have to fetch to 14 and then Swords up to 16, but they'd have to hit us for 8 Storm anyway. So sadly, even though we have Swords in hand, I don't think it does anything here. Duress is fine. Shooter. Floating green. Guess it doesn't really matter because I assume you just get tendrils here. Yeah, because even here, put these all on the stack. We can try to sort our own Thalia, but then we just die anyway. Yeah. Tough. Alright, this can be interesting. The swords come out. It's a pretty easy one. I don't mind keeping... Let's see what we're going to bring in. Definitely these 6. Mums are still good. Hexdrink is still good. It's just a powerful early threat. Scroop Ranger can probably come out here. Knight of Autumn isn't the worst. Endurance isn't the worst. Grist is probably just a little bit of a no-bo. I don't mind keeping in Prismatic Endings because a lot of Storm players against Thalia decks will play out their petals a little bit early on to play around Thalia. So Prismatic Ending usually does have a pretty good hit, but there is a world something like a Choke is just better than the extra Prismatic Ending. The big issue is Empty the Warrens, which isn't traditionally these days a winning line for these decks, but it is always interesting to think about the Plague Engineers. But I think I have to just play this in a way that if they have Empty, they have Empty, and just try to play out a game that doesn't allow them to have that as an out. Because sadly we don't have Stoneforge Mystic Batterskull, which can sometimes win games through that. Yeah, Plague is also a clock at some point. I think the question is Plague a better threat than Knight? And I think Knight's just a little bit too good. Test stands for the Epic Storm. You think it's better than Choke, Panda? I could even see like a 2-2 split of Knight and Plague. And then maybe something like this. Choke not the greatest card, but I think it is better than some cards we're taking out. And this is a pretty good one. Pretty happy to keep this. I could even play around Massacre a little bit by going for Bayou off the Windswept Teeth and then using Noble as our only white source. Opponent kept 7 as well. What do Mums do in this matchup? So cards like Abrupt Decay, Fatal Push, any sort of Chain of Vapor or Echoing Truth effects, it keeps creatures alive through that. Yeah, Massacre's a big one, but if I don't hit my land drop next turn outside of the Savannah, I think I'm just going to play it, but... Because getting down 2 spells next turn is pretty huge. Another Noble. I definitely want to play the Oof, but then I can't play the Noble unless I play the Savannah. We also don't have the, I guess there's a small roll of script range in this matchup where you can start returning your own planes to your hand if they're in Savannahs. I think the upside of playing out my mana here is just better than trying to play around probably a 1-of Massacre. They take the Choke. Interesting. Wasteland's actually huge here, because we can also Wasteland our own Savannah, which is pretty nice. Hey, Red the Reckless. A huge thank you for the Prime sub. I hope you're doing well. How's your weekend been? Massacre is a sorcery speed spell, so we can just do it upkeep here. And then we can actually just 6 here, to be fair. What would be the point of wastelanding your own lands? So Savannah is a Plains, and there's a card called Massacre, which my opponent can cast for free if they control a swamp and we control a Plains. So seeing that I already have 3 mana, that's really all I need. I'm not going to play this land either, because it could still represent something like Mindbreak Trap or Surgical, and the extra mana doesn't really benefit me here. Pretty happy attack with both here, because I could attack with Exalted for the extra 2, but if they have a removal spell for Hex Drinker, which I guess they can't, there's probably no reason to attack with the Collector Oof here. I was going to say if they remove the Hex, then at least I still get 2 points of damage in, but I think here it's fine either way. It's not like the Collector Oof is on blocking duties. But I do need to find another piece of interaction. I guess this is definitely 6, which is tough. Like an end step here on like Decay on Collector Oof is pretty rough, because then we don't have anything, and we've given our opponent a lot of time to set up, so bit of a tough one. Yeah, Adnor's out of the question, which is nice. But it's definitely a big part of this matchup is really getting down multiple pieces of disruption, because just the one is never going to do enough, unfortunately. Hey Eli, welcome. I hope you're doing well. Very much looking forward to next weekend, which should be pretty fun. I'll have to do some midweek training and just catch up myself on Legacy Goblins. But I hope you're well. Pog, yeah. Much Pog. Two, 4, 6. Okay, well, they're digging for something. 1 card top, 1 card bottom. Hey, Victor. Yeah, Lucky, that's more than fine. I'm more than happy to work around your schedule. Past in Flames. Nice. Leyline I really like against decks that use their graveyard as a little bit more of a resource than just a one-off effect. So things like Bug Hogak is definitely a deck where I really like Leyline instead of just Endurance. It hasn't been too bad, but even something like lands, making them have to have an answer before they can start really generating some value out of their graveyard is a pretty big one. Reanimator is obviously always there as well, but being able to... I guess Endurance doesn't play around the Chancellor effect, which is pretty tough, but yeah, Reanimator is always a good one to have Leyline for, which I've seen pop up a little bit more. But all in all, Endurance has been pretty solid, but I do like it as a card that... it should be there to support your other graveyard hate. You shouldn't just be relying on Endurance, in my opinion. Bit of a slow hand, but I'm going to keep it. We have some good ways to turn off some early pressure. And we have double fetch, which means the Knight's coming down as a 4/4, which is pretty sweet. But I could definitely see this being a mulligan as well. It really depends on this Swords being online. Well, this looks like it's going to be... Mono red. War boss. Okay. So at least we can Swords this. Off a Savannah? Yeah. And then we can just Wasteland next turn. Oh, don't 6. Don't 6. No! No! It's cool. It's cool. We can recoup. We can recoup. Oh, nothing from them. Okay. Mistakes were made. Mistakes were made and I get a follower. Hey Driving Piles, thanks for the follow. I hope you're well. Rough. Interesting that they didn't have a play last turn. They had 4 mana and they had no play. Okay, now they got a play. Okay, that's not nothing. I could even play the Verdant here to get double green. We are pretty far behind now. I'm pretty happy for that. Just to turn off a Blood Moon, turning off the Questing Beast, because Beast against this sort of board is pretty nice. But something like a Bone Crusher Giant on this Hex Drinker would be pretty solid. I think unfortunately what I did was I have 6, but I haven't turned off a I had an undo from a Sylvan library that took off all my starts, which is pretty tough. Yikes. This card's so good against us. This is gonna be pretty tough. Okay. Guess we block here. Take 9. But this is going to get out of hand, especially with the token in play. The F6 was, yeah, pretty huge. Maybe it's a case of the Wasteland being better for us as well. Just hitting our 3rd land and playing Knight. Let's see what they hit. Hey Piles, it's very cool to hear. They hit a War Boss. Alright. I think here we just take out the... We have to take out the Firewick. And then take 6 here. Go to 2. This is fine. Okay, that's gonna do it. I don't think we have a draw here. Yeah. Alright, mono red. I like the forces. I like the plagues. I could see the Thalias coming out, or at least keeping 1. It might just be all Thalias. Hey Nabo, welcome. I hope you're well. Saito-san, good to see ya. Good to see you, mate. I hope you're well. Yeah, D&T's a sweet deck. Pretty cheap as well for what it is. Oof is fine. Scavenging Ooze, Sylvan Library. Beast is still pretty fantastic. Endurance is probably where I want to cut here. Although it's a 3-4, the double green is pretty rough. Gaddock Teeg's also interesting because it stops all the Planeswalkers. I'm not too sure. There's been a lot of changes with Mono Red from what I am used to seeing it. But I think that Teeg still stops things like Fiery Confluence and Planeswalkers, which I assume is still in the deck at some point. I'm going to drop a library. This deck can be really aggressive. This is a pretty nice hand. I'll keep this. Turn 1 Hierarch, turn 2 Scrib Ranger into Green Suns if we want. We have Prismatic Ending and Wasteland. Got some Volks recently officially own Blu-ray Delver. Nice. Very cool. We didn't win game 1, no. Unfortunately not. Another Wasteland. I probably don't mind just Scrib Ranger and then Green Suns for 1 again. I could also Green Suns for Collector Oof here. That'd be pretty interesting. Turns off Chrome Mox. That's about it though. I could also Scrib into Green Suns for another creature. Probably don't mind that. Something like untap this, return this, and then play Wasteland for turn. Maybe I don't want to show them Wasteland yet. I also don't mind Hex Drinker here. Just as a nice threat to get going. Because I don't want to close out this game. I actually like Hex. Confluence would wreck us, but if we get Hex up to a 4-4... I believe Confluence is 1 damage each time, so we can only deal up to 3. It's 2 damage to players. Yeah, I'm gonna go for Hex. Yeah, double waste is really nice. Well, Lackey, come on now. What are you doing? You say it in chat and it happens. Oh. Well, maybe Green Suns for Collector Oof was the right idea. Fury? Rough. I'm not playing this. I'm not playing this. That's alright. Alright. let's get it out of the way. Yeah. These things happen. These things happen. Lackey, have Goblin decks been playing Fury? I know that Food Chain Goblins plays Fury, which is very tough. But I haven't seen it in like normal Goblins. I assume Pyrokinesis is just better? No. It does the same thing, but it's also a creature. But Pyro can target players, I believe. Two Kinesis side, nice. Well, at least it's a fast game so far. So, hey, Dark Spy Dragon, welcome. I hope you're well. Hope you're having a nice weekend. 0202. I've done my job. See you guys. Pyro can't hit players, but it is instant. Nice, Foxpress. Fox, I believe you also, last stream, used your channel points to put a green creature in my deck. And I apologize that it's not in here today, but it will be this week. I just want to confirm what that creature is. Fury hits walkers? That's pretty big. I was thinking Glistener Elf, if you didn't have another creature. Pretty sweet hand, I'll keep this. Turn 1 Mum, turn 2 removal spell or Thalia. And we can get basics if needed. We also have the Black Source, which isn't really relevant game 1, but it does help with Prismatic Ending, so... Opponent went to 6 cards. You can, Fox. For you, you can definitely can. A single Goyf? Yeah, Matt Fook did really well with a recent deck list that played a Goyf. Oh, Daze. I did not expect Daze there. That's going to be okay. I was thinking more like a blue-white control deck, especially with the Guru one. Nice. Okay. Belt of Giant Strength. Alright. You need to message me these cards, because I am not going to remember them. But I will definitely do that for the Thursday stream. Not +2 maze. Endurance. I kind of just want to hold up Endurance here, but seeing they're a Daze deck, I'm going to assume they're also a Delver deck, so I kind of want to hold the Endurance for now. This is a winner. This card's amazing. Why do the split of non-snow and snow basics? Mainly for cards like Predict, which I'll put in chat here. It might also make your opponent think you're on some sort of snow deck. Like if you're a blue-green deck, like blue-green Omni, then playing snow basics. If you're not already playing Icewind Quaddle, might make your opponents think you're playing Icewind Quaddle. Hi, Rock. going to take up Hex Trigger here and pass back. Scratch the belt. It doesn't work with the Wildcats the way I thought it would. Okay. We'll find something cool. Interesting. Just fetches holding up. Daze Brainstorm. Opponent definitely not giving away what they're on. But Daze always makes me think straight away of some sort of Delver deck. Now the question is, do I want to hold up Endurance or tick up Hex? And I think just ticking up Hex here is so good. It is a 2-turn clock here, which is nice with Exalted. Could be Doomsday. Yeah, it could definitely be Doomsday. Hopefully not, because the Endurance is obviously one of my best cards against Doomsday. Volk, okay. No black yet. They fetch? Interesting. Yeah, I definitely felt maybe like it's Sneak and Show, yeah. So I think we will side for Sneak. I guess, thankfully, most of our sideboard cards for this matchup are pretty similar. So the Thought Seizers and the Deafening Silences I'm pretty happy to bring in. Probably pretty happy to take out the Swords, Ramanap, Grist, Prismatic, at least to 2. I don't mind the chokes. Ooze is irrelevant. Endurance is pretty irrelevant. I don't mind the extra force. Night of Autumn. Yeah, I wonder if they just needed one card off the top and they wanted to thin the deck to try to find it, so... I think this is... I'm pretty happy to see how this plays out. A turn 1 interactive spell would be really nice, like a Thoughtseize. This is a pretty nice hand on the blind, but not really what I want here. Mum and Thalia still seems pretty good, so I'm happy to keep this in bottom. Probably the Cradle. What do we do? Turn 1 Mum. Turn 2 Cradle into Thalia. Turn 3 untap. Cradle is 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. I think it's still just the Cradle. Preordain. Yeah, Preordain definitely makes me think it's going to be a combo deck. Seeing that Young Pyromancer isn't seeing too much play, there's probably less cards. And like, Explosive Iteration is a great card. Choke. Alright. I think I'll still get... It's tough, because if I drew into a Thoughtseize, I'd really want to be able to cast it. So I think getting Scrubland here is fine. Even though we can't use it with the Scrib Ranger, I do want to turn 1 Mum here. And that does turn on the ability to do that. K-Sound, I will check out Achilles 27's stream. You could also look at the Legacy Maverick Discord. There's some really good discussion there. I believe they're also doing something... I know a lot of the guys have been busy, but there's something in the works there as well with like getting some of the more experienced players to put on like some like workshops, which is pretty sweet. I haven't been able to cast Prismatic yet for 5 colors, but it is on the list. We do have a bingo card going. All right, what did the Ponders do? Chose to not shuffle. Knight. Alright, pretty happy here just to go for Thalia. Force. Okay. Then I'm still pretty happy to attack you with the Mum. If they want to spend their turn like a braiding or something, I'm not too unhappy with that. Alright, this definitely feels like sneak attack into creature. So in 15 they have to find a Lotus Petal and an Emrakul, which I assume they do. Oh. Maybe the play was to put in Scrib Ranger. Maybe they show and tell again and we get to Scrib Ranger. Ah, okay. It's pretty good. Oh, they got a 2? Okay. So now we could draw an Exalted Creature. They have to have another Grizzlebrand as a blocker or some sort of blocker. Unfortunately, we can't draw like Force of Vigor. We can't cast in our turn for free anyway, so that's just a tough one. And maybe that's a case of just needing to mulligan a little bit more aggressively. Choke's interesting as well. They've already used a fair amount of their petals, but I can only assume here they have another Grizzlebrand. So actually, the Scrib Range is pretty nice here. Because what I can do is attack... I don't think I can attack here. But I do get the Scrib Ranger. I get 2 activations here of Mum. Ooh. So there's a world where I play the Scrib first. Now the question is, do I attack? Because then I put them down to 1. Which just turns off Force of Will. I don't think it's worth it. Hey Matt, I hope you're well. The issue is if they have Emrakul, but if they had Emrakul, they would have just put it in. So I don't think there's a upside of attacking here. Yeah, I think we just pass. And hold up double activation of Mum and just hope that they don't find Emrakul off some sort of cantrip. Interesting. So they must have drawn it, or else they would have put it in last turn, surely. Tough. Yeah, Emrakul's a tough one. Do I want to change anything? I probably want the extra force. Pretty happy to drop in a library. I think that's the only change that I want to make. They drew 7 after the attack. Jutesh, that's why you're here. Thank you. Too kind. Too kind. Very glad to see you. I hope you're doing well. I think just this is okay. Tough. There's definitely a reasonable world there where we put in the Scrib Ranger instead of the Knight, but I don't think they would have put in a creature, so I don't think Knight being online straight away is the biggest issue. Pretty happy to keep this. Turn 1 Deafening Silence, turn 2 Thalia, and then Green Suns for something later on. A little bit slow, but hopefully quick enough. Opponent went to 7. This does at least mean they can't like brainstorm and force in our turn, which is pretty awesome. Alright. Preordain is 2 bottom, which is pretty good for us. Force, that's pretty nice. Love to see bottom. Yeah, big fan. Scrib Ranger would have died to a Braid. We would have been able to untap the Mother of Runes with Scrib Ranger's ability to give Pro, which is nice. Hey Tenchu, glad to have you. I hope you're well. I hope you enjoy the YouTube content, which of course everyone can find here. Alright. Teeg is pretty sweet here, but I guess Teeg turns off our own force, which is a tough one. I also kind of want to hold up mana for Force of Vigor. So worst case next turn is Ancient Tomb, Show and Tell, Sneak Attack, and then have the red left over for a creature. They can only cast one spell a turn. So can we. I think turning off our own force is just worse. We can't even Green Suns here for Dried Arbor, because then it turns off the force as well, because we can't pay for it. This is actually a pretty awkward spot, because it turns off... Gaddock Teeg turns off force and Green Suns. So I think here we just hold up the force, unfortunately. And I don't think we use it aggressively on this Lotus Petal. I think we just try to hope and pray that we get to use it on something else. Unless they play a second Petal. If they play a second Petal and go to end step, I'm pretty happy to trade the force for those two petals. No shuffle. Hey, Hamu. Welcome. Thanks for the raid. What did you just play and how did you go? Thank you very much for the raid. Yeah, I think he was just passing. Untapping. Yikes. There is a world here where I just have to build up my mana. Which doesn't feel great, but... I don't think we're doing much else. I just can't afford to not do anything for 2 turns. You're showing your matchups on Modern Challenge through replay? Very nice. That's cool. I like that a lot as a content idea, to go back through your games and show where you could have made different lines or why you chose different things. Very cool. Oh, really? Okay. Nice. Nice, nice. Alright. Scrib. Well... I guess you just cast Scrib here. Untap Dried Arbor, return Forest. Play Forest. Pass. Opponent has 7 cards in hand. Surely something like Intuition's coming. Echoing Truth on Thalia. Okay. Pretty good. Yikes. If I was sideboarding against D&T, I'll take out the 4 Thalias, bring in 3 Plagues. Yeah, big oofed. Sideboarding for D&T, I'd probably take out the Ooze and the Thalias. And I'd bring in 3 Plagues and 2 Thoughtseize. Or maybe the Force of Vigor. Endurance is also pretty good, just as a 3/4. Ramanap, I can also see it as taking out creatures that really rely on the graveyard against things like Rest in Peace, but probably some mix of these 6 for 3 Plagues, and then seeing how I'm thinking, something along the lines of a mix of Thoughtseize, Force, and Endurance. Yeah, pretty rough league, but you get that. Hey, Mr. Grey Fox. Very cool to hear. That's very nice to hear. Makes these O3s so much better. Hey, Daniel from Brazil. Welcome. I know that Brazil has a pretty awesome Eternal scene. If Saito San's still here, he's a very good Brazilian player. Tough. What are you? What's your local scene like in Brazil? And what formats do you play? Big yikes. I was so keen for this as well. Modern and Pauper, very cool. I think if anything for some of these losses, it's just been a case of maybe being a bit more aggressive with my mulligan decisions and not just keeping a hand because it has something like Thalia in it. Modern and Pauper are more popular here. Cool. Legacy and Santa Catarina, nice. Hey Scoop, 26, very nice. What do you know what won? And if any Brisbane players made top 8, and if so, what did they play? How does it feel without Stoneforge? I think it's okay. I'm a big fan of just maximizing my ability to make Green Suns more powerful, so fit in more targets. And then also just more removal as well through Prismatic Ending. But a card like Grist is obviously going to be a lot better with a card like Stoneforge in it, because making those 1/1s a little bit more powerful is really strong. Happy to keep this as well. Probably just going Savannah into Noble. And then, I mean, we have turn 2 Thalia and Wasteland, we have turn 2 Knight. You one-chop first with Max on 9 Enchantress. Brandon made top 4 before I defeated him. He was in Scales. No other busy peeps in top 8, but Sam was 9th. Very cool. What did you play? And congrats. Very nice. Wouldn't expect anything less, Matthew. Naya Enchantress? Very cool. The deck seems really strong. We are going for Savannah into Noble. Opponent on 6 cards as well. Hey Soaps, thanks for the follow. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what do you play in Legacy? Once! Okay. Probably a Depths deck, but I've definitely seen once before in Maverick and even Bug Hogak. But I'm going to assume it's going to be Depths. Which we have a pretty strong hand for, let's be honest. What was their... Oh, it is going to be... Okay. This is going to be like a green-white Reclaimer deck, which is going to be pretty interesting. I think here that the Knight is just going to be the most powerful effect. And then we can maybe even turn this Dryad Arbor into removal for the Reclaimer with a Grist of Green Suns, which would be pretty strong. Oh, it could be Green Post. Yeah, that's a great one, Walrus. I think Green Post is definitely correct. So at least we have something like Green Suns for Night of Autumn if they try to Pithing Needle Wasteland and then Wasteland them. You'd love to see the Loot Tree playing. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well this actually isn't too bad because now we get to Wasteland and deal with the Pithing Needle. And they can't use a Reclaimer this turn, so... Oh, they named Knight. That's interesting. I guess all roads lead somewhere. Alright. So I think we just Green Suns for Night of Autumn, destroy the Pithing Needle, and then use Knight main phase. That seems pretty strong. So I probably don't mind losing the Scrubland here. from Vancouver, Canada. Don't play Legacy, but I bought into D&T. Very nice, and you're more than welcome, Soaps. Very cool to hear from Canada. I'm a big fan of the Legacy Canadian Threshold podcast, which is done by some Canadians, which is always cool to see. Nice. Sack Scrub. Go and get Wasteland. Wasteland. Cloudpost. Doing this now so that they can't untap with 2 mana and then just sack the land to Reclaimer, but obviously kept a pretty light hand, which is interesting. Cloudpost is going to be a good one. So we have Gaddock Teeg and Forces. That's probably all I want. I probably don't mind siding out. Ooze can be relevant because they can have a card like Ramanap in the deck, and also just making sure that Elvish Reclaimers can't become 3/4s too early on is pretty interesting. I probably don't mind dropping some amount of Thalia. They just have so much mana that it doesn't do too much. Thoughtseize is always an interesting one as well, because it does take them some amount of time to build up enough mana to do something that's realistically going to have an impact on the game. So they can get stuck with a bunch of big cards in their hand. I still think mums are okay, but probably not the greatest. I think we just have bigger creatures in a way, and their main removal is going to be through Eldrazi or Walking Blister. Yeah, I think it might just be all the Thalias, and then just bringing in Thoughtseize. And then I probably don't mind the extra endurance. Drop all the Thalias, I mean it. Haha. This is actually probably okay, because Prismatic Ending is awesome for Elvish Reclaimer or Pithing Needle, a bunch of little things that I really want to get rid of, so pretty happy to keep this. Also, Sylvan Library just to dig is pretty nice here. You're from Illinois and play Legacy and Modern, have Death and Taxes and Sneak and Show. Nice, nice, nice. Leyline, okay. They play a land and then once. That's definitely interesting. That makes me think they want to play something like Needle before they play a Cloudpost. Happy to play Bayou here into Noble. This means next time we might get to Prismatic Ending and Sylvan Library, which would be really nice. Still learning Death and Taxes. Nice. It's a good deck to learn. Well, there's okay, there's Cloudpost. Hex. Okay, that's pretty solid as well, because now we get to start 2-spelling. They could also have Crop Rotation open, so I do want to be mindful of that when thinking about Wasteland. We can ending the Leyline with Noble Hierarch, which is really nice, because we can produce our blue from this. Ramanap's going to be fine. I'm probably pretty happy just to pay 8 here, and I definitely am. Alright. So let's go Prismatic this. Tick up once. And attack. Is there a way to get Archon of Emeria in this list? I think you definitely could play it, but I think against the decks where you want an Archon effect, you want them a lot earlier. So cards like Deafening Silence are fantastic. Aethersworn Canonist is okay, but you already have a pretty saturated 2 CMC slot against decks where you want those effects. So sometimes as a 3-drop, it can just be too slow, which is always the tough part. There's Wasteland. Alright, put on top, put on top. Ending this. I will play Wasteland, and then I'm just going to tick up Hex once, twice. I guess I might as well tick it up again. Because I also might want to keep the Wasteland for something like Tabernacle or Glacial Chasm. But I also want to keep them off prime time, so that's something to take into consideration. I think I might just Wasteland upkeep. They only have 2 cards left. No crop is pretty huge here. 4 basics, 2 cards. I think in the right metagame, you could definitely play a second 4-drop. Shifting Ceratops is a pretty fantastic one. I know Dom Harvey was playing Thrun in the sideboard of Green-White Depths, and did a 4-0 run through a prelim, which is pretty sweet. Decks have definitely played things like Sagada or Titania in the past, which is pretty sweet. I probably want to keep the swords here and go to 8. And play the Verdant to fetch here. We also have a really, an extremely good clock here with Hex Drinker as well. They kind of need crop into Glacial Chasm here. I guess they could have Blast Zone. Blast Zone would be pretty sweet here. But I'm going to assume it's Chasm. Because I believe Blast Zone is 3 in tap. Hey, Expert No Merch. Welcome. Mazavith. Oh no! Why did my opponent do that? This has protection from everything. No. Look, if you're gonna learn, this is how you're gonna learn. Tough. Tough. I can only assume that my opponent has Glacial Chasm in the deck or something else. So that's a tough one. Maybe they have something here. They're just gonna float mana. Okay. I think my opponent might have tilted a little bit there, which is fair enough. Hex Drinker isn't a card you see too often, and protection from everything, you don't really read it sometimes, so we'll see how this goes. Is this Green Suns for 3? No. Okay. Well, we're on the board, which is nice. Oof. Paid actor? Haha. Nice. Insane hand. Yeah, we had a pretty good hand. The Sylvan Library definitely helped. Cloudpost deck that doesn't traditionally have a great clock, so just being able to pay up to 12 life straight away is pretty nice. What were the other matchups? We lost to Ant. We lost to Blue-Red Sneak. And we also lost to... Chat will help us out. Chat will definitely help us out. I feel like it was another combo deck. Red Prison. There we go. Red Prison. How am I liking Prismatic Ending? Fantastic. Fantastic. Really, really liked it. Big fan. Big fan. Have I ever played Sneak and Show? Yeah, I got it in paper. And I have played it once or twice. It's not really my kind of deck, but I do like it. I'm not a big fan of combo decks. Other than something like Depths, which is a little bit fairer. I've never been a big fan of just if I have 2 cards I win the game kind of thing. But I guess you could say that that happens with Depths, but it's a little bit harder to set up with Depths because you're not playing things like Ponder or Brainstorm. So yeah. Obviously very powerful deck though. So you don't play Delver and Daisies, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I guess some people could say like Thalia and Collector U for a turn 2 win against some decks, or Gaddock Teeg, but yeah. Cool deck, but just not my type. Yeah, the new card for Allurin's interesting, but I don't see a world where it's better than just how Recruiter is already a 1-card win with that deck. But pretty interesting. Loam in the current metagame. I saw Arkan playing a Loam deck the other day, which looked really cool. I think it was like a 4-color Loam, which I haven't seen too much of yet. I mean, the only Loam decks I've been seeing is lands, so pretty cool to see that. How would you define a fair deck? Oof. I think one that just doesn't have like an I win button. That's a big one. Usually creature based, I would say, is a fair deck. Something like Goblins, Maverick. I guess Burn is still a creature based deck in some ways, but yeah, something that doesn't have an I win button. Something like Blue White Miracles is pretty fair as well. I think in the blind I'm going to mulligan this. The endings could be irrelevant. The Knight of Autumn and Scavenging is a pretty big silver bullet set. If we're up against the matchup where they don't actually do anything, it's going to be pretty tough to actually do anything with them. So one-lander. Yavimaya is basically an I-win button. That's fair. I'm going to go to 5. Okay. Keep bottom Oof and probably bottom Grist here. And just lead on Windswept for basic if I need it. Okay. Chose to not shuffle. Mum's actually pretty nice here. Pretty happy just to go for a basic. Play Mum. Pass. Yeah, Ragavan is extremely expensive. And it does suck because it does seem like a card that might be getting looked at in regards to just how popular it is. This is looking like it's going to be a blue-green Omni deck, which is going to be pretty tough. How does Prismatic match up with Abrupt Decay and Power Level? It's a good question. Prismatic definitely has some downsides in Maverick. It can't be cast with Teeg on the field. Abrupt Decay can. Abrupt Decay is just removal when you really need it because it can't be hit by anything, which is really cool. But at the same time... Prismatic's flexibility is huge. Yeah, this is going to be blue-green Sneak, I think. Force. Pitch Brainstorm, sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the ability... I think Abrupt Decay also making you to go for black sources against decks like Death and Taxes, Goblins, or Delver that play Wasteland can be a pretty huge... yeah, a pretty huge loss as well. I think this is just show and tell. Narset. Okay. Interesting. What do they find? They don't find anything. Okay. They don't attack either. Thalia is pretty sweet. I think Thalia here is better than using either Ending or Swords. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure if it's a deck that plays like Hull Breacher and Days Undoing. I was thinking it was going to be blue-green Omni. Yeah, some sort of bank control perhaps? Yeah, Alexander 5, that's a huge one. Prismatic being just a 1-mana removal spell when you need a 1-mana removal spell, or being a removal spell for a 4-mana Walker or a 3-mana card as well is pretty huge. Noble's fine. If they miss a land drop here, that's pretty huge. Okay, they don't. I could Wasteland the Tundra in combat here, but I think I'm pretty happy to pass and see what I draw, because the Wasteland might be better for me. Especially if I draw like a Knight or something. How can you tell what deck you're playing against just by one land that they play? It's a good question. There's obviously a lot to it. Usually things like Snow Basics can sometimes give away what they're on. Some combo decks play certain basics. So say like Tess might only play an island, but Ant might play an island and a swamp. Which is probably incorrect these days, but little things like that. Prismatic can also get around Thalia's attacks, which is pretty huge. I think I'm pretty happy to first attack the Narset. Because then I want to go after their mana. I want to Swords the Noble Hierarch, and then Wasteland the Tundra. In damage, I'll take out the Tundra. Swords this. Alright, we're pretty happy to respond. Pro white. They're down to 3 cards. I think I might actually want to play Prismatic Ending here on the Noble Hierarch instead of Swords. But it is tough, because if they have something like Teferi, then Prismatic Ending is also pretty good. So I might keep the Windswept Heath up for a black source, just in case they have another 3-mana Walker. But Hull Breach is the card that I was kind of thinking about. But if I can keep them down on land, I'll get pretty happy. This feels like Prismatic Ending. Oh. Oh. If they ending the Thalia here, I'm pretty happy to end step fetch Dried Arbor to attack the Narset with protection up in Mum, so that an Icefang Quaddle can't kill it. Just in case the Narset is part of their plan. Oh, Ramanap. Huh. I mean, Ramanap into Wasteland here is also pretty nice. To take them off white. I think that's better than taking them off the Narset. Nice. I could try to attack the Narset here with the Mum, but I think that's just a little bit too greedy. One Icefang would just be a huge blowout. Uro could also be a card to save the platform, that's very correct. It looks like they're just going to miss here, which is pretty good. And the nice thing about Ramanap here is that now I can attack the Dried Arbor into the Narset without using the Mum, because if they block with an Icefang, we can just replay it. Let's get back to Wasteland. Because I drew the Swords, I'm happy to play the land first. Because if they have an Icefang, we do have the Swords, which is nice. Nice. Opponent with no white. And we have taken them off a Tundra and a Savannah, so there is a world where we can just take them off all their white sources if they don't play a basic. Interesting. Okay. What advice would you have for a new Legacy player? Play as much as you can. Play as much as you can. And have a look at things like MTG Goldfish at the Legacy metagame to see what sort of decks there are. If you're a really new Legacy player, I'd also find your local scene. And see if anyone has like spare decks to lend out. If you do find a deck you like, maybe print it out and like just goldfish a bunch. Read Primers is a really good one. I think as well, just like if you find a deck that you like or an archetype, find the Discord, because usually there's a really active scene within a Discord, which is cool. Spare Legacy decks in this economy. Yeah, I think the best thing you can do as a Legacy player is just embrace the community, because usually you'll have a really solid community, no matter the size, within your Legacy, within your local community, which is cool. But yeah, even like talk to your opponents about like why you lost the game, or you know, on turn 3 I made this play. Do you think that was correct? I could have done this as well. What do you think about that? Choke seems relevant here. Teeg, Thoughtseize. Plague's interesting. Plague's a nice way to counter the effectiveness of Icefang Quaddle, because if Quaddle's drawing a card and I'm using a Swords to Plowshares on it to get rid of it, it's a pretty bad pretty bad trade. But at least a Plague Engineer naming Snake means that they have to deal with the Plague Engineer before a Snake actually does anything other than draw a card. So there's a world where I kind of like Plague, but I think here I'm happy to drop the Oof. Probably the Cradle and a Hierarch. I'm going to assume this is a deck with some sort of sweeper. So I don't want to rely on my creatures on the board or Noble Hierarchs. I'm probably okay with taking out some amount of Knights as well. And maybe just like one sword and keep the 3 Prismatics just because they're a little bit more flexible. Yeah, I think I'd be pretty happy to trade a Plague for an Endurance. Definitely. Alright, we have a 1-lander with a Caracas. We also have a turn 1 Thoughtseize that we can't cast. Pretty happy to mulligan this. I think against a deck like BANT, the games are going to go long. So for me, the #1 priority is just making my land drops. And this hand is not going to allow that. So this is a hand that will allow it. Pretty happy to keep this. And probably bottom the Ooze. This way we have either turn 1 Protection in Mum or turn 1 Acceleration in Noble, depending on what we draw. Hey, Forza Williams. Very nice to see you in chat. I hope you're well. Hey, Warren. Very cool to see you as well. I definitely remember the name Shadi from my YouTube videos, so a huge thank you for your comments. I really enjoy your insights. Oh, Instep Brainstorm. Okay. I have seen a few BANT decks move away from Terminus and towards Engineered Explosives, which this hand isn't great against, but we'll see. If they use a Swords here, I'll be pretty happy. Yeah, that's more than fine, because we get to 2 spell next turn anyway. Unless we draw a Wasteland, I'll be pretty happy to Wasteland. We don't, but that's going to be fine. Second Mum into Noble. This is nice as well, because I mean something like Teferi Tick Down isn't the greatest for my opponent. Narset. What will they find? Swords to Plowshares. Okay. Knight's pretty nice. I'm going to cast the Knight first. And then probably just attack into the Narset. They're going to force it. Okay. That's fine. So I can either attack for 2 into the Narset to put it to 1 so they can't actually draw a card off it. But then I lose to the Swords to Plowshares. So I think here just attacking for with the Noble into that Narset is fine. So that if they want to trade the Narset for a card, they can. We also have Green Sun's next turn with a land off the top into Questing Beast, which would be pretty sweet. That's going to be okay. We also have Green Suns for Scavenging Ooze, which is pretty nice. We could also Green Suns for... they find a second Swords. Okay. Well, then maybe like Green Suns for Scrib Ranger wouldn't be the worst. Wasteland's pretty huge. Okay, I think what I want to do here is Wasteland the Tundra first. Because if they use a Swords to Plowshares on the Mother, then they obviously want to use the second one in their turn, which gives me more information about the Green Suns, and then we can just Green Suns for Scrib Ranger to turn off the other swords. So I think doing this first is pretty nice. Yeah, so they're going to try to Swords the Mum. We can give it pro-white. And they're doing this because they think that they can get rid of the Mum. But now we get to go for Scrib Ranger. Untap the Mum now so they can't respond to us untapping. And now we get to attack for 1. I think Uro is a perfect power level for Legacy. Who taught me about Magic? A good friend, Mr. Richards. I went into a local game store, and yeah, good friend Jacob was there working and taught me about Magic. I first played Mono Green, I believe, in Standard with cards like Strangleroot Geist and Wolfear Avenger. And then, yeah, I kept going from there. Yeah, Uro without Astrolabe I find is a lot easier to deal with because it takes a little bit longer for it to get into play. They know about the Bayou, so I'm going to play the Bayou instead of the Forest. And then I'm just going to keep the Prismatic Ending for the Uro, which I believe will be coming down next turn. Ooh, Verdict is huge. Yes. Wow. They miss a land drop there. So if we hit like a Wasteland, we hit the Caracas. I'm gonna hide the Caracas for now. I know about the Uro, but they're missing a land drop here as well. Okay, there we go. This is a matchup where I definitely like having some sort of options in the board for maybe Planeswalkers, because cards like Supreme Verdict or Terminus don't hit them. They miss a land drop again, which is pretty huge. White, black, green. Play that and pass. This leaves up like Dryad Arbor if I really need it. It is pretty huge that we hit every land drop, 100%. And there's Teferi, so Teferi can only tick up here. Oh. Oh, they are going to use it. Interesting. So this is perfect. This is exactly why we use the Windswept Heath. They do have that Swords we know about, though. But I think it's worth trading the Dryad Arbor with the Swords to Plowshares. Okay. I'm actually going to cast the Thalia to force them to use the Swords. I assume they would have used it anyway. But seeing that they don't know about the Caracas either, I'm pretty happy for this. I don't think there's a world where they allow the Dryad Arbor to kill the Teferi. So I don't think there's too much to do there in regards to casting another card. The big elephant in the room here is Endurance, because that card against Thalia is very good. So if I can maybe draw a Wasteland here and take them off double green before attacking, that'd be huge. Verdant's not going to do it. We do have the Caracas to return Thalia, and Ice Bank's not the worst either. The first strike on Thalia is very relevant. I hope they don't double block, because that's not how things work here. Okay, good. Happy just to allow this. And just hold the Verdant. I think the Verdant as unknown information is much better than anything else. Because for all my opponent knows, it could be Endurance. Okay. Okay, still no endurance. That's pretty nice. I will cast the Noble here. There is a world where I don't want to cast the Noble because Teferi tick down on Thalia, we can fizzle with Caracas, but we can't really fizzle the Hierarch hit. But I am going to play it. Yeah, I would say this is a pretty difficult matchup for Maverick, just because Wasteland isn't that strong. They do have a lot of basics they can run off. A lot of their spells are 2-for-1, so cards like Ice Fang, Uro, Teferi, even Supreme Verdict. Usually by the time they cast it, they're getting a lot of cards into play. Oh, we're going to get a lot of creatures into play, so that's pretty tough. You would need three snakes to kill a Thalia, but if we have like Caracas out, we can of course kill 2 with First Strike and then return it before the third one deals damage. You can also do something like, if you have Mother of Runes out and they block with all 3, you can see how they assign blockers, and then you can give pro to the last Ice Fang. I guess you can do it in response to all of them because they're all the same color, but... What is the hardest part of playing Magic? I think thinking ahead is always a big one, especially with fair decks. With cards like Green Sun Zenith, you have to think of, you know, against Tess or Ant, is it better to go for Gaddock Teeg here? Is it better to go for Collect Oof? Do I have the time here to tap out for something else and get my mana going? Even Wasteland, you know, Wastelanding the right land is pretty huge. Ooh, Bear with 2 guns. Another land. Yeah, down payment's pretty big. I will admit that. The cost of legacy is pretty big, so. Hull Breacher. Okay, this is actually pretty big information because it makes me think that they are going to be on some sort of Doomsday deck. Sorry, Days Undoing deck. But it'll be interesting to see if they kept it in, or if they just kept it in the Hull Breacher. Might as well return it, but we might be discarding it here to a Days Undoing. No. They just want to attack. Okay. Bird. Is this Undoing? Okay. I don't think we can go back from that, so we will just concede here. Knowing that, I don't mind the extra endurances over the knights. Maybe not. Yeah, endurance is just a 3/4 flash is really nice. Especially if I can keep them off their graveyard as well as a resource is pretty strong. They are a game down, correct. I'm just going to drop a Thalia. I'm pretty happy with the 3. And we are bringing in a fair amount of non-creature spells, so I don't want to be taxed too hard by Thalia. Yikes. Okay. This actually isn't too bad. Plague on Snake is pretty good. I'm just not sure if Plague on Snake is better than what we've already brought in. But Plague on Snake is definitely reasonable. I'm going to keep this and bottom the plains. Opponent kept 7. Evoke is casting the creature like a spell, correct, yeah. Double Force, Narset, Days Undoing. I think I'm just going to take the Narset here. Knowing about the Days Undoing is a little bit better. And my opponent has to find a second card for that at least. Narset just finds anything, so... At least knowing about the Days Undoing is a lot better. Now they have to kind of force the Teeg, which is great for us. Green Suns. This does turn off our own Green Suns, but I feel like this is just going to be forced, so that isn't an issue. Force pitch force. They still have Days Undoing. Interesting, they don't play the Misty, which we know about. They play the Flooded Strand, so... Huh. Choke. I don't mind just playing this in the blind. Makes it really tough for them to actually tap out for anything. I guess if they have Teferi as their other card, then it's pretty rough. But it's just a bounce anyway. Prismatic Ending. Okay, that's pretty good. Prismatic Ending ourselves. Yeah, Ending's really good. Ending's probably the... I mean, this matchup was always really tough, but Ending being just a really easy Game 1 answer to things like Sylvan Library, and then Game 2 answer to things like Choke is really powerful. Wow, they're just undoing it? Okay. It's pretty good for us. I don't want to play into a removal spell, but I can't really. I guess we could play Hexdrinker and then hold up Endurance. No, because we have the Scrubland out. That's pretty rough. And the Wasteland. I guess we could Green Suns for Teeg. Back to Basics is definitely a card that I'm considering playing around. I think I just want to go Hex into Green Suns for Teeg. So Green Suns first. Yeah, I mean, a 4 mana already in play and 8 cards in hand is really good for them. I definitely don't feel great about this position, especially seeing they fetched for a Savannah with a Wasteland in play. Sure. They could also just like Narset or Breacher into Days Undoing here, which would be pretty brutal. Hierarch's okay. Okay. Chose to shuffle, which is good for us. Swords the Knight, sure. Dryad Arbor. Happy to take them off Savannah. The issue here is that we don't have great attacks. Can't really attack the Teferi here. If they have Ice Fang, it's just such a blowout because we can't swords at instant speed. Have I seen much of Urza's Saga and Legacy? Yeah, I've definitely run into a few. This is probably the first matchup that we've had where we haven't seen it. Yeah, I think losing Teeg is just so big for us that I can't just run into an Ice Fang here. Unfortunately. But I'm happy to hit that mana. Force negation. Interesting. They forced that. Well, pretty happy to try to do it again. Another Hierarch. Narset. Okay. Yeah, lands with Mox Diamonds and Tabernacle is pretty huge. I think I'm happy to... I can draw a card here, because it's each opponent can't draw more than one card each turn, so I can draw one card in their end step. Okay. Really want to find Questing Beast. Another Endurance. Right. Let's attack both at Teferi. Actually, both at Narset's probably better. Two cards left for my opponent. And now I will just cast Endurance. I think. Teferi turns off Endurance at instant speed, correct? Unfortunately, just have to 6 here. A fetch... I guess it can't mean Terminus because of the Gaddock Teeg. Interesting. Days Undoing. Rough. I think we're just too far behind. Yeah. Rough. I think it's just, yeah, way too hard to recover from that. Which is rough. Let's say a 1-4, which isn't a great great finish, but definitely some tough matchups in there. Definitely makes me consider Choke as just, it should be other cards that attack those matchups well. So some sort of Planeswalker would be pretty sweet outside of just Grist. Didn't really find a time for Grist, but a lot of the time Teeg was really stopping our ability to Green Suns effectively. But I still feel Teeg is really strong, but definitely a lot of takeaways from that. You definitely can't always have positive results in leagues, and I think the best thing you can do is just look at what you could have done better. And I think in that league, I definitely found that my mulligan decisions were probably inadequate, and that I should mulligan a little bit more aggressively to kind of more lights out cards. Yeah, I definitely like I like Vraska. I think Vraska Golgari Queen is pretty sweet, especially a nice way to make use of late game mana dorks and just creatures that aren't that great, or maybe like a Wasteland if you're up against the deck with basics. The Plagues we didn't really bring in either. I guess they were good against mono red if we did hit them, because turning off goblins is pretty huge. The endings were fantastic. The swords were really nice as well. So I did like the 3-3 split. But yeah, maybe it's a case of the chokes just not being where I want to be. Or maybe even trying out Carpenter Flowers in the spot of choke. It's just tough because opposing prismatic endings are huge. And I think that although prismatic ending and endurance are great for Maverick, the downside of these being played in other decks against Maverick just outweighs any positives for the cards, which is really tough as well because they're so powerful and so good that It's really tough. Probably 4-color Kaya. 3 CMC Kai's nice. It was a lot better when Astrolabe was in the format and Dreadhorde Arcanist and Oko, because it had a lot more targets, but I still think Kaya is pretty strong. The issue is that I think that the tick down on Kaya is just what Prismatic Ending does already. So having 4 mana Vraska is pretty sweet, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, I think next time I'll try the Stoneforge Mystic list again from Achilles, because he's obviously done pretty well with it. He's a great player, and yeah, it's always nice to test out different builds. The other one that I really want to try out is BANT Maverick, and go back to BANT for a little bit. Teferi's obviously really strong, Uro's pretty good, and also cards like Metal Mage out of the board are pretty nice against combo decks, so I don't mind testing out BANT. That'd be pretty sweet. Leovold's pretty solid. I could see a 4-color build with Leovold. Even just an Abzan build with a Trop would be pretty cool. But it's just a case of finding it. Maybe over something like the Grist for the grindy matchups, you could definitely play Leovold. But yeah, that's me. A huge thank you to everyone who came in and watched. I'm going to quickly see who else is playing and send you guys their way. The Legacy Pit. Nice. There we go. A huge thank you to everyone who came in and watched. If you want to find me on YouTube, you can find me here. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me here. Enjoy your weekends. Stay safe, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers.